Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trade Show University. This is a very, very special episode where I'm honored to have on a guest that just has his finger on the pulse, not just for most of our listeners are here in the US, but he has it globally on the events industry. Honored to have on Kai Hattendorf, and he is the CEO of UFI. UFI is the Global Association for the Exhibition Industry. With UFI being active all around the world, he spends a lot of time connecting with the industry and stakeholders around the globe. He's a sought after speaker across the events industry and regularly here in the US, and was recently named Business Events Strategist of the Year by PCMA. Quite an honor. Kai, it is an honor to have you here. Welcome to Trade Show University.
Jim, thanks so much for having me. And there are so many acronyms in our industry that we all get our letters wrong every now and then. Don't worry.
That is the truth. There is, oh my gosh, goodness. I don't know of any industry that has more acronyms than the events industry, but
We should turn that into a Jeopardy episode.
I bet that would be an amazing, amazing closing keynote panel fun discussion that could be bring out a bunch of people, leaders in the industry, and have them guess what the acronyms stand for. That would be just a blast. So for any
I'll
show
take
planner
event
out
industry
there.
associations for 100.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. So, okay, you show planners, get your thinking caps on. Let's make this happen. But thank you again for coming on. I recently read your column where it talks about the 5 trends to watch for 2023. And I guess this is an annual column that UFI puts out. So getting us past, what's going on today, really looking out into the future. And I was absolutely fascinated by these 5 trends and thought that focusing, especially on one of these for the Trade Show University listeners would be great. But before we get into the focus, can you give everyone a little bit of a background on why you do this every year, and then give us just a quick touch on the 5 trends for 2023?
Sure, I'm happy to. Now, the 5 trends have almost become a tradition. We do our events around the year where we connect the industry around the world. And the biggest and the most international event is always in November, and that's our Global Congress. And after that, we are really taking stock of all the insights and previews and perspectives we have gathered. And we are really distilling that down into short and crisp 5 trends that we then put out as the year begins. And they're really not about the next 3 months. They're really not about whether we're going to have a recession in the first or second quarter in the US, or whether Indian population will be bigger than the Chinese population, which I think happened last weekend,
Oh,
or whatever. But it's really about the next 12 to 18 months. Of course, that's the scope where you're relevant for the boardroom, for the kind of planning and for the midterm strategy, and just as well for the operational guys and ladies and gentlemen out in the field putting the shows on the road. So that's why we do them. And they've become one of the most used bits of content that UFI puts out every year.
that's fantastic because it helps us not to be just reactionary, but really to be strategists and to be planners for the upcoming year. So as our companies that are exhibiting, as well as show planners, how do we tap into these trends, or prepare for them in the best way possible? And that's by getting ahead of them. So can you give us those 5 trends, if you would just touch on those? That would be great.
Sure, I'll give you the headlines to start
Yes.
with, and then we're gonna
Okay.
we're gonna dig deeper. And if you want to read the whole text, I'm sure you're gonna share that
I
in the
will.
release notes with the podcast as a link. So no need for everyone to take notes now. Jim will share where you can find that. So the number one trend, and that's the one we will focus on a little more in detail afterwards, is that it's really in 2023 and 2024 about the customer focus that we all need to have at the core of everything we do. Let's not get distracted by discussions around inflation. Let's not get distracted by discussions around recession. We've been there, we've done that over the last 10, 15 years as an industry in most parts of the world, and we can learn how we deal with that going forward. But let's focus on keeping the customers happy. They were just so eager to come back to the show floors after the pandemic. Let's make sure we can keep them happy. And we're going to discuss how to do that. A second trend that we see around the world is that really by now, this climate crisis is hitting us. You have shows that are being canceled because of hurricanes, right? Florida. You have phone warnings, closing down shows. And you have weird weather conditions that are closing down airports, so people can't travel to shows. So this is impacting us on a very operational level. At the same time, many of the big exhibitors are increasingly implementing policies about carbon budgets next to travel budgets. So they're prioritizing where they go as they have their own carbon emission targets to reach. This is going to have a big impact. And we as an industry need to show that we're part of the solution to the climate crisis, that we're ways to deal with that. And we're not just part of a problem. And we have a great industry initiative around the world called Net Zero Carbon Events that deals with that. And the third trend is where we are calling an end to the discussion whether or not the future is digital. Come on, this is a digital conversation. A podcast is a digital product. We are creating our digital future ourselves as an industry. Some still use hybrid as a term, but this is really just a smart adoption of technology and data to make the face-to-face events better and more useful for, again, the customer. And we will discuss how we can do that. The hype around the metaverse will die down as Facebook has less marketing money to spend. But let's see if Apple releases all these rumors about the augmented reality device, if Apple or someone else is able to release another game changer of tech like the smartphone was 15 years back. Remember, the iPhone came out 15 years back.
Wow.
So digital will all be about the implementation. Yeah? It will be less glamorous, but people will use what works for them. And that'll be cool. Yeah. There is and remains staffing as a key issue for the industry. Everyone is hiring, of course. We still need to hire, and it'll stay like this. We need new skills, new talents, new perspectives, and we need a new way of engaging with the colleagues we want to hire in the industry. We need to tell a better story about who we are as an industry. We are the industry that builds and serves communities. We give purpose, which is a key attraction factor for talent when they pick a career move. So we actually asked young talent from around the world to build this new staffing narrative, to give us a new story to tell. And they did an amazing job. And so for us, one of the key trends is really to change the way we sell ourselves on the job market, to bring in all these kind of diverse, multi-talented and educated people that make our industry this great melting pot of skills and talents. We used to talk bad about that. That we fell into the industry. Yeah? It's an asset. It's nothing bad. It's something great. We are a unique industry where you can thrive because you've done something else before, and that's great. So the last trend, the new thinking, the digital, the climate issues, all that leads to our industry picking up speed when it comes to change. Change is accelerating. It's no longer good enough to get our greatest hits album back on that we played before the pandemic and reimagine the show floor as it was in 2019. We need to up our game. We need to push the envelope. Pick a forward-looking metaphor of your choice and add it in here. We really, 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 really need to get better in evolving our business around the face-to-face show floor that we are building. And we see the fastest speed of innovation in Southeast Asia, where new business ideas are coming, where new business elements are being rolled out. And it's no coincidence that this is the part of the world that's therefore catching up the fastest after the pandemic and is geared for growth. You will know that it took the US trade show industry 10 years to grow back to where it was after the 2008 recession.
Wow.
You guys don't have the time. No mature market has the time to copy paste what we did before the pandemic and say, it'll take a few years, but we're going to get back to it. We need to change and we need to evolve, and that change is speeding up. And we are well positioned to look as a global industry, to look for those bright ideas and take them where we find them. So
Wow.
those were that was a long
Yeah.
monologue, Jim. I'm sorry for that. But if you ask me to summarize 5 trends, and I may have used 5 minutes for that.
Well, we could go an hour or more on each one of these trends, and I'm sure that you and your colleagues have poured days and weeks into thinking about these trends. And so, yeah, this would be probably one of the longest podcast episodes ever if we did that. But all each
We
one of
could
these
make a whole
is
event around this, you know.
there. You go. Hey, there we go.
Hey, hey.
So all this leads to the customer, though. At the end of the day, it's all about the customer. If the customer isn't coming to our events for whatever reason, whether it's a digital event or a live event, then we've got to know about it. And these changes, keeping things fresh, keeping things new. I'm big in the business to business world. So I've been going to these big industry shows for 30 years, and they pretty much look the same as they have in the past. And we're some of the attendee numbers are going down, and we're wondering, well, what? Oh, it's COVID, or it's this, or it's that, and but at the end of the day, things are changing. They are demanding different experiences. So let's talk about that focus on the customer. I really want to spend the majority of our time talking on that. Why is this one really the most important in your mind?
I think you've already touched on 2 or 3 really critical points. The customers are, it's a new generation coming to the show floor. You got 5 generations of decision makers on one show floor.
Wow.
And the modeling is still very much geared to the not the younger ones of those, right?
Yeah.
Now, the pandemic has given us a golden opportunity. Remember when we all did these shows as a kind of digital community event on these online platforms?
Mm-hmm.
At UFI, with our own events, and we did around 60 of them online, we found a totally new and additional audience of people who we didn't have contact to, who didn't know about us, who we didn't know about. And they connected with the work we did, and they connected with the content we shared. And now we're seeing them at our events because that motivated them to go and see UFI face to face, to go to the event face to face. The same happens with every show organizer. So there's a whole new audience to capture that is eager to come to an event, that is eager to experience the trade show floor that wasn't on their mind before the pandemic. If they experience basically their granny's show, they won't come back. So we got to watch how they interact. We got to check what they want, and we got to challenge us to evolve to make sure we can capture their needs. And this again is where digital comes in. An event app is the basic, right? Replacing your old printed show catalog with an online app, which we all did 10 years ago. That's a minor step. Adding additional information, digital services, digital products to the show, because that's what that generation of people expects. The matchmaking is a core asset that people expect if they come to the show floor. So that's just one dimension how we can focus on the customer.
So much there already just to unpack. But we also have different versions of customers. For our associations, for our show planners, our customers might be our members who are also exhibitors. But then you have the attendees or the buyers. You have our sponsors. You have so many different levels here that we need to consider. So what are some of the most important elements you feel are a good experience for the customer?
That will change from industry to industry, and the priorities will differ. But I think there are some truths that go cut through all industries. Right after the pandemic, the first edition of every trade show was about trade. People wanted to reconnect, and people wanted to fill their order books and sign deals. And you had fewer people coming, but they brought the checkbooks. So this phase is coming to an end. So we're going to go back into the discussion about the customer experience or the more individualized customer expectations. And this is where the basic pain points that have remained the same for the last 10 years for every show come in. That is decent Wi-Fi coverage, that is decent food and beverage options, that is the air in the halls or the access to fresh air outside, that is the sanitary conditions, All these are the kind of top issues that make the day pleasant for
Hmm.
someone coming to a show. So let's start with the basics, and that's the human experience. And already there, quite a few shows don't put a lot of focus in.
Hmm.
At the sustainability debate, and you have many organizers who are rightly removing carpets to reduce landfill and waste. That's not good for the joints, right? So you gotta have to redesign your show floor experience, try to make the waste shorter, try to create other spaces where people can sit down and don't stand all the time. So this is an impact on the design and the layout of your show. And right now we're just discussing that very, very physical experience of being at the show for a number of days at the same time. Yeah. So that's the first dimension where
Yeah.
it begins with, and that shapes how you perceive an event.
Oh, it definitely does, and I'm glad that you're focusing on that, and it really is the basics. Because if you get the basics right, nobody notices. Nobody notices. But if anything's wrong, that's the first thing they'll talk about. So, for example, if the show floor is too hot, and someone says, "How was the show?" "Oh, you went, it was so hot." It was so hot. That's what they'll focus on instead of the relationships and the communications and the solutions, which is where we want them to focus. So getting everyone to think about that human element, and like you said, as we make changes like removing the carpet, like any big change like that to that human experience, we have to compensate for that and think, what will this do other than it'll make everyone feel better about the green factor of our show and the environmental impact that we're making, but what about the human experience? And then people are going to be, "Oh, my feet were killing me halfway through the show, and I can't." We don't want that. We want all positive, all positive. So there's definitely multiple layers going in here. That's outstanding. So I want to go back
And
to,
then
yeah,
yeah, but then
continue
you go
on.
to the next level.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
the human experience. Let's say you have the human experience, all right, right? So it's not a you get through the day all right.
Hmm. Yeah,
Then the question is, what is it you want to achieve? Usually, you want to sell stuff or buy stuff, or you want to meet people, and or you want to learn something on the content side. So you, as the show organizer, need to know which of our customer groups are there to do what. This one floor fits all concept where you slam a content stage in the middle, have a bunch of sponsored content speakers, and have a bunch of booths around is not tailored enough. Because especially if you have the exhibitors providing the sponsored content as a goodie in addition to their stand, that's something you give the exhibitor on top. But it's tough to find an audience for that because people aren't there to be sold at. If they want to have information about a specific product, they go to the booth because
right.
they go to the exhibitor, right?
Yeah.
They don't linger in the center of the hall, on the side of the hall, to listen to a sales pitch on a content stage. So if you do the content, focus on what the audience, what the community you're serving really needs as content. And then figure out whether the show floor actually is the best place for that.
Hmm.
How you create time slots for content without taking too much attention away from the floor, how to find the balance because that content need and that to business conversation lead, the need of customers. Yeah. You learn all that when you have good interaction with your customers and when you make sure to be in touch regularly and ask them the right question and they trust you enough to give you the honest answer. Yeah? So at the core is that you are able to ask them what they want and they're able to tell you what they need. And that you then don't focus on an additional sponsorship dollar as a quick fix, but sponsor on making sure this customer need is fulfilled because it'll pay back a multiple of that one sponsorship dollar over the next 2 years. So that's where the business intelligence comes in, and that's where
Yeah.
we talked about digital being a tool. That's where digital comes in, and that know your customer, act with your customer, gather data about your customer, so you can serve them comes in a major way, and where we talk about that accelerational change, this is driven by a better understanding of the specific needs of a group of customers around an event in an industry.
Yeah, the feedback, the communication is so critically important. And then what to do with the mountains of data that we have available to us, and how do we interpret that to be able then to give that back to the customer in a meaningful way, in a meaningful new experiences that they can take. This is just this is great stuff. So let's talk more about the digital part of it, and where do you see that going? How does digital augment our live events more than just what we originally thought as hybrid was? We're going to broadcast the live event and into on Zoom into people's offices and homes. Where do you see digital going?
I think that concept of hybrid in its meaning that you have a physical event that is a digital event at the same time. I think everyone has understood that these are two very different audiences that you need to serve in very different ways. So having a live stream from the conference stage, something you can do, but it doesn't really fulfill the need of an online audience.
Right.
If they have an interest in content, you can make it available on demand, but it doesn't need to be at that specific moment when it happens live on the show floor. That very much limits the person not on the show floor, because you may be in a business meeting, you may be traveling, you may be at home, because wherever you are, you're not at the show. And why should you then follow the schedule of that show? It makes no sense at all if you think about it. So that if you detach then the on-site and the online, then you can question the whole value of the term hybrid, because then it becomes something like a broadcast or an on-demand model. And that we've known for a long, long time. We call that pre-show and post-show activation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
All right.
At UFI, we started recording the sessions at our main events in 2007. Because never in the world can everybody travel to attend a global event
Right.
all the time. But people are eager to tap into the content that was shared. So we've been doing audio recordings, and then since 2012, video on demand for every event we do, and make that available to all the members afterwards. So this is not new. So either we've been hybrid since 2007, or hybrid has just been a term that we've used for a while. Now, the promise of digital, I think, goes way beyond what do you do with a piece of content that you've filmed. The promise of digital really is to have the option to stay connected with your customer base, to stay connected with your clients if you're an exhibitor, to stay connected with your business partner, the exhibition organizer, whose job it is to create sales opportunities for you as the exhibitor, or buying opportunities as the buyer. To stay connected not just in the context of a physical floor, a physical event, but to stay connected all year round. It is really interesting to see that major organizers, remember the RXs, the Informers of the world today, they were born out of media companies that started to spin off event units to utilize the content they were producing in multiple ways. And over time, most of them split off and became events-only businesses. Now you see increasingly event organizers, exhibition organizers buying back into publishers, buying back into industry content providers, because this gives them so many additional channels to connect with their customers throughout the year. And this is all digital. And let's say you have one main event a year, you have a bunch of digital town halls or gatherings, you have a regular bit of content that you share. It can be a newsletter, can be an online magazine. And you have a totally new model of what some call omnichannel, what some call 365 activation of your customer base, connecting buyers and sellers. And you're tapping into this potential of digital marketing. And if you look at the size of the pie of digital marketing spent in the US, and if you know that I think around 35 to 40, between 35 and 42% globally of B2B marketing spend goes into face-to-face.
Okay.
If we can pick up a few breadcrumbs of that digital marketing spend, our industry will easily double in size.
Wow.
Double in size. So forget about pre-pandemic and getting back to it. Think rocket launch.
Wow,
And this
that's
is the
wow.
potential of digital
Yeah.
if we play this right. And just like today, the biggest players in the industry, the leading players in the markets are those who understood the opportunity of going out of your home market, becoming international, becoming global. Those are now the top of the ranks, and they've all done that. 5 or 10 years from now, the big players in the industry will be those who've understood how to activate digital and tap into that digital marketing potential to grow beyond the days when you hold the in-person events. The face-to-face event will be the core and will be the big date in everyone's calendar where everybody comes together, because this is what we've learned from the pandemic. We want to meet, we need to meet in our community, in our industry. We need to reconnect and recharge our relationship batteries or business relations fall flat over time. But around that, boy, the sky's the limit.
This is so fascinating, encouraging, inspiring. Creating this 365-day a year cycle, not just cycle, but community. Community. You're building a community of your customers year round is so amazing to me, especially as someone who's been, like I said earlier, in the B2B world, going to big industry shows. And when you went to that annual industry conference, and it doesn't matter if it's industry or you pick an industry, pick a show that happens once a year, an association show, you get together and it's like a big family reunion. You see all those people that you haven't seen in a year, some you haven't talked to in a year. But now you have an opportunity through digital, if it's done right, to create ongoing communication, feedback, collaborations. So, and then when you culminate in that live event once a year, the magic that can happen in the future is just wow, outstanding. And but the fact that you said double, really, that that made my eyebrows raise really high. So it's great to hear the optimism and the thought processes that are going into this with you and your colleagues at UFI. Just outstanding.
Well,
So
thank you for that. But this is where the whole narrative then actually really again ties into the staffing issue, because
yeah,
this new staffing narrative that we worked with talent from the industry from around the world, they say we are an industry that builds and serves communities. Let's just
mm-hmm.
repeat that. We don't build a show floor, we build communities. And if we understand that the show floor is a tool to serve a community, that we can interact and activate these communities all year round, then we stay who we are, but we open a totally additional world. And my hope is that the new right people we're bringing into the industry now will drive this development in the next 5 to 10 years. And then you and I can sit at one of these industry meetings in the old timers corner and say, "See, we hoped this would happen. It has happened."
It has happened. And the thing that I love most about this industry is the passion of the people. And like you said, most of us have fallen into this, but the ones that come into this with purpose are the ones that are going to drive it forward and continue that passion and help others to understand. And that passion will draw the right people in to help us, help lead us forward. So if we get this right, where do you think everything's going to be maybe in as we start kick off 2024? Do you think doubling is that quick, or where do you think we'll be?
No, no way. Don't forget, we do have this little nasty recession thingy and the inflation
This is
thingy,
true.
and we do have a war in Europe, and we
Yeah,
have so many operational challenges that we have to deal with, and God knows what other black swan we'll find on the way.
true.
So this will take time, and I gave you the example that internationalization and globalization of the industry took 10 to 15 years. So
Hmm.
this will take time as well, but it has started. It has started, and we are on that trajectory. Where will we be a year from now? We'll have research coming out in early February. I don't know when you're going to release this, so
Okay.
we will have research coming out soon. Oh, research is just out, and if you're listening to that afterwards, anyway, research has been released that tracks where our industry thinks we will be at the end of 2023, and we will stop talking about post-pandemic recovery, with the exception of China. where we still need to see the post-pandemic recovery, as it's just reopening
Hmm.
and dealing with the big wave of COVID infections. But we will globally, if we index the revenues we had 2019 as 100, will be somewhere between 85 and 95 in size of the industry. So that initial estimate that we had that the industry will reach its 2019 levels by 2024, that's coming true. We have markets that will surpass that in 2023. 5 markets are sure they will surpass it. It's Saudi Arabia, it's Colombia, it's the UK, it is Spain, and one other, like Turkey. Turkey will
Oh,
surpass 2019 according to the data we have already this year. The markets that have the biggest share of international participants have the longer road to recovery because they rely on global travel lanes or global travel schemes being back, and pricing and climate challenges are a factor there that's holding back everyone from traveling long haul. So for the international, for the global events, it'll take longer, and they will probably strengthen their regional events instead. But a year from now, we should be back where we were when COVID hit. And then, as I said, upwards and onwards.
so much here, so much amazing information, and I appreciate you sharing all this. But it really is. It's the focus on the customer, while let's tie in that last trend, embracing the change and really moving forward, knowing that hey, we can't do things the way we had, and expect us to grow. We need to make change. So as we wrap up our conversation here, what would you think? What would you say if you can leave people with a couple of tips, especially when talking about focusing on the customers? What would you have them do?
Literally make sure you talk to the customer. It's as simple as that. Have as many conversations as you can on the show floor. How's your day going? How's the show going? How's your order book? What can we do to serve you better? Have that backed up by solid digital surveys, and build that data, build that knowledge, and then relentlessly apply it and question everything you do if your customers tell you it ain't good enough.
Relentlessly apply it. I love that word, relentless, and continue to question yourself. You've got to continue improving. Just outstanding information. Kai, you've got to tell people about UFI and the Global Congress. And I heard it's coming to the US this year.
Yes, it is. So if you want to see our 5 trends for 2024 taking shape,
Oh,
join the conversation. Our global congress will indeed come to the US for the first time in North America since 1972.
wow.
I was barely alive back then, and for sure wasn't attending. Now we'll go to Vegas, November 1st to November 4th, and we'll bring a few friends. Normally at an UFI Congress, you have colleagues from between 50 and 60 countries in the world coming together, which really creates this global perspective and really creates this global exchange. And I'm super excited about coming to the US with this event because there's so much in the US. And at the same time, there is this momentum building in the US trade show industry that this is the time to connect with the international network, with the global community in the trade show industry, because you see this change. There's a lot of changing of the guard, there's a lot of new thinking. And if we can support that with our global community coming into Vegas while having everyone experience US hospitality and US culture and friendliness, then I'll be a happy man at the end of this year.
If people wanted to know more, learn more about Global Congress, as well as more about UFI, and I know you have a lot of research and a lot of information, where can they go?
Well, obviously, there's the UFI website, ufi.org, but I always recommend people follow us on LinkedIn, because this is where we put information about the research out, information about the events out, education, and lots of advocacy updates. So if you follow us on LinkedIn, you can kind of plug yourself into the bloodstream of information that we are sending out to stay connected with our community. As you mentioned, the research, that is right. And if you want to bookmark one thing in your session notes here, please bookmark our research portal, ufi.org/research. well, it's a research portal, so that's the link. Because the research that I was quoting that will have been released if you listen to this after early February, that is on their webpage. We make a lot of the research available to all industry professionals because we have a duty to do that as the global association. So there's no paywall, there's no need to register. We make this available for the industry, for everyone to benefit from. And our leadership and our members are keen that we do that because it's the role you have if you're the global body.
Outstanding. As a first point of action, make sure you read the article on the 5 trends and then dive into the research they have available on the website to see where it all come from and why are they saying what they're saying. And you heard a lot of optimism, a lot of possibilities going forward, a lot of growth going forward. So tap into all the things that they have available to you, and I will drop links to all those in the show notes. So please check those out and follow them on LinkedIn. See what's going on next because it affects all of us. It affects everybody in the industry. Kai, this has been outstanding. I really want to thank you so much for joining me today and taking the time to share your wisdom and all the great things that you're doing at UFI. Really, really important.
Well, again, thanks so much, Jim, for having me. And a conversation I will have to have with the Vegas folks is that we're going to break their model of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas because we want all these ideas and all these conversations and all these experiences that people will have in November in Vegas. We want them all to leave Vegas, take them with them, and share them. So none of what happens in Vegas at the UFI Congress will stay in Vegas. Sorry, folks.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much. That's a great way to end this and get everyone excited about November, what's coming up. So again, Kai, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing all this. And thanks for the great work that you and UFI do every single day for the industry. And for everyone listening, thanks for taking the time to listen today. Continue to come back here to Trade Show University, continue to get better and learn, and let's all grow together. It was awesome having you here. We'll see you next time.